Hey everybody, it's Emily at ARG Schooling, and today I am doing the BookTubeAthon video challenge for day 5. Today's challenge is to come up with a reading list for a class you want to teach, and I can't pass that up. That's what I do. That is my job. I come up with reading lists. I was really excited about this one. I'm going to leave the video down below in the description if you want to play along for this challenge. But the trick of this is that you have to be able to include at least one book in your TBR for BookTubeAthon. So I had to stop and think, I'm obviously not going to use a book I haven't read yet. So of the books that I've read that were actually in my TBR, I had one that stood out to me as something I could turn into a class. My idea for this class is that I'm going to teach a class on the anti-hero in literature. Now, if you don't know what an anti-hero is a character in a story who does not have the attributes of a hero. They're maybe not the most courageous, they're not the most morally sound character, they're not very heroic. They're not what you would normally think of as heroic. But they're in their own way trying to reach the end goal of helping or changing the world in some way. For my class, we're going to start with a book that was in my TBR, which is Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, and I chose this one because it was in my TBR, but also because this is a book filled with anti-heroes. You have Nimona, who is very much this mysterious figure who goes about everything in the most violent way possible, but in the same sense she's trying to do something right, which is to get rid of this institution that is harming the world. And then you have the other anti-heroes, the supervillain and the hero, who are always battling each other. So I feel like this is a perfect case. This is a perfect case study for anti-hero in literature. Another book I would include is Harry Potter, of course, because the perfect example of an anti-hero would be Severus Snape. He is always on the dark side until it affected him, and then he tried to do what he thought would be the right thing to do, even though he went about it in the incredibly wrong way, like absolutely wrong way. And everything he does throughout the rest of the story is, in his mind, the right thing to do, and he thinks he's doing the best possible way, but clearly he's going about it entirely wrong all the time. So in the end he does in fact aid Harry in saving the world, but the whole series he's doing it wrong. So I would argue that Severus Snape is the perfect case study for the anti-hero. Another anti-hero story I would include is Lord of the Rings, because in this story I would argue that Gollum is the anti-hero. The creature Gollum was always just a normal hobbit until he came upon the Ring of Power, which corrupted him. And then when he meets Frodo, he promises to help him in his journey to destroy the ring, all the while battling with himself, because on one hand he wants to help Frodo because he loves Frodo in his twisted way, but on the other hand the monster inside of him that is still obsessed with the ring just wants to get the ring back, and he is fighting himself throughout the whole story in whether he can help or hurt Frodo. So while it's not a perfect study of an anti-hero, I still think that Gollum fits the character study of an anti-hero. Another book that I would include is Horns by Joe Hill. In this story, Ignatius, or Ig, is the anti-hero. He is accused of murdering his girlfriend, and it's a year later when the story picks up. It's the anniversary of her death, and he spends that day getting drunk and doing just terrible things, and when he wakes up the next morning he has horns, which give him the ability to manipulate people into doing whatever he wants. And Ig in this story is trying to prove his innocence, but he's doing it in a very dark and full way, and he does in the end find a way to prove his innocence, but he gets there in such a twisted, dark way that you can only consider him as an anti-hero. There's nothing heroic in what he's done in this book, even though in the end he was getting to the right endpoint. So I would argue that Egg is an anti-hero. And then for a classic, I would include The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, because Gatsby is an anti-hero. He is doing everything in his power to do what he thinks is the right thing, and that he wants to win back this woman that he loves, but everything he does to do that is wrong. And even getting her to fall back in love with him is wrong, because she's already moved on with her life. She's married, and she has a child, and she can't just up and leave that life for him, but he just doesn't seem to understand that, because all he can see is that they had this moment, and they want to be together. And she loved him once, and therefore it's right for me to get her back. So I would argue that Jay Gatsby is an anti-hero. So those are the books that I would include in my class on the anti-hero in literature. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Happy reading. Bye!